housekeeping first. Okay, let me pull our slides up.
Should I get a piece of paper to take notes?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
And also, I will be answering questions at the end. So, so jot down your questions so I can answer all your questions at the end. Okay, so can you see the slide?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So tonight's masterclass is menopause, misinformation, the lies you've been told. And there's a lot of them. We are literally surrounded with like controversy and misinformation. And so tonight, the purpose of tonight's class is just to give you some facts so you can ditch the fear and take back your health. So I'm so glad you guys are here. I know there's always a lot of stuff going on, especially as we get into the spring and it's just nicer weather, and there's all kinds of commitments. So here's what I want you to understand. As we embark on this subject, you don't know what you don't know. And I say that because I was coming from the same place. I didn't know what I didn't know. You don't know who to follow, who to believe. You don't know where to turn to for answers. You're not getting the care or the education that you deserve. It is, I don't hear the happy stories. I know there's got to be some women that have good doctors that are doing a lot of educating and discussing of options, but I haven't heard those stories. I hear all the nightmare stories, and we're all kind of in that same boat. So my promise to you tonight is just straight talk, no BS. I want you to know some key things that you are not learning from your doctor. So just to give you a little bit of information about me, I'm very passionate about helping women reclaim their health, their energy, their confidence, their vitality. We are good caregivers. The problem is that we haven't taken great care of ourselves. And so we almost feel a little bit guilty. But here's what I've learned. When a woman transforms her health, she transforms her family. So I love it when I see a woman transform her health and she starts guiding and educating her family. And we're literally bringing about generational change when it comes to their health. So it's massive. So speaking of families, this is my little family, James and JD and Maddie. And Maddie is 20. She is a fantastic hairstylist, the best of the best, very gifted and talented. JD is about to graduate from high school. Really smart. We're still trying to get some more scholarships. He's gotten some and we're waiting on some others. And then there's James and he holds us all together. And unfortunately, they all have to listen to me and all this stuff that I learned. So they're kind of grateful for you showing up to these things because that means they don't have to listen. JD's like, I shouldn't know this much about menopause. And he's right. He's only 18. So a little bit about my education background. I am a dietitian by profession. I have a master's degree in human nutrition. I am a functional medicine certified coach. I'm also a certified midlife hormone specialist, and I have over 7.5 years of formal education. I have 27 years of experience now. So I've been in this space for a very long time. I've worked for a functional medicine gut health specialist for 3 years. I also have the podcast, Midlife Hormone Crisis, created the Hormone Huddle, and I've coached hundreds and hundreds of women. I absolutely love what I do. And I love seeing a woman transform her health and just feel better and feel hopeful for the first time. So that's why I do what I do. Something about this menopausal transition, it is the biggest transition. And I will tell you that everyone is unique and different, but it feels like the doctor puts us all in the same boat. It's just your age. You're just like everybody else. They're quickly dismissing your concern, maybe offering you a prescription, whatever, and they send you right out the door. And you're wondering, well, what about testing? Like, what do I need to know? Like, what do I need to be prepared for? Wouldn't it be nice to see like what's kind of going on with my hormones here? So you you leave the doctor feeling more defeated than when you went in, because you've got more questions than you do answers. And you're wondering, okay, is this doctor even equipped to help me? The answer is no. Your doctor more than likely is not. So there was a survey that was published in Mayo Clinic Proceedings in 2019, and it revealed that only 7% of the doctors surveyed felt comfortable discussing menopause with their patients. 7%. That's heartbreaking. Y'all, I'm sorry. We're not talking about this small subgroup. We're talking about women. Every woman will go through menopause. And so that's why you're here. I'm going to help you so you don't, so you can be prepared and you don't feel alone. So, just so it doesn't sound like I'm beating up on doctors, it is not just the doctors. You've got really good doctors working in a very broken system. It goes all the way back to medical school. Why haven't they been taught about menopause? Why has this been overlooked? And by the way, how is the same doctor who is very busy and diligently caring for mamas and babies supposed to have the capacity to care for a woman in menopause? It doesn't make sense. There's nothing about that that makes sense. So that's why it's on you. It's on me to be educated, to be empowered, for us to know about testing, to learn about our options for hormone replacement therapy, so you can make a guided, a educated decision, not a decision based out of desperation. And so you can be fully prepared when you go to that doctor's office. You know exactly what you're asking for. You know exactly what you're doing. You'll be able to tell real quick, hey, can that doctor help me, or do I need to go elsewhere? So it doesn't start with, hey, let me find a good doctor. It starts with you, so that you have the education, and you're empowered long before you go to the doctor. So to give you a little bit of science background, I want you to understand how important hormones are. Hormones are part of the endocrine system. And so this endocrine system, it influences almost every single cell, organ, function of the body. So it's like your body's email system. This is going to date me, but hey, we're in the same age group, right? We're talking about midlife women. The movie You've Got Mail. Do y'all remember that movie? Like, dang, you've got mail. Okay, I could not help but think of that movie as I was putting these slides together. Like, that's what this is. Your hormones, this system that is responsible for the glands that make the hormones are like the emails. And so hormones carry information and instructions from one cell to another. And so think of those hormones as just those little chemical messengers, AKA emails. They're going to carry the information. They're going to carry the instructions from one set of cells to another. And there are recipients. Those recipients are on the receptors of the cells. They receive and interpret those hormone messages. So we talk about hormones, but we also have to talk about receptors, the recipients. So keep in mind, all of this happens within our endocrine system. Now, there's a lot of different hormones. We're only going to talk about estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone tonight as the three key sex hormones. Keep in mind that your lifestyle has a huge, massive influence on your hormones. So when I say your lifestyle, I'm talking everything: sleep, stress, exercise, nutrition, gut health, detoxification. That has a tremendous influence on the quality of your hormones, your emails. So that's why it's so important that we address all of this. And so that's why my program has been so successful, because we're getting to address all of this. You're not having to figure it all out on your own. What do I eat? How do I exercise? I don't have any energy to exercise. How do I get this done? I don't know what to do. So we address all of that, because all of this works together. So there's a lot we need to know in midlife. You know, as we start to lose our menstrual cycle, so many of us have had such a horrendous cycle that we kind of rejoice at the loss of that cycle. We're like, yay, okay, it's over. I don't have to worry about this anymore. But it's so important to know what the loss of that cycle represents. the presence of a cycle, it's not just a signal that pregnancy has not occurred. It is literally a catalyst for biological events all over the body. So when we talk about the cycle, it just puts into motion all of these physiologic processes. And it's not just the presence of the hormones, it's actually the peaks and the rhythms. So there is a estradiol and estrogen peak at day 12, a progesterone peak at day 21. Those peaks and those rhythms are so very vital to our overall well-being. So when we lose our cycle and the loss of the hormones, those hormones dramatically declining, we're disrupting the cellular life cycle and the maintenance across the entire female body, because over 4,000 gene products and over 400 physiologic processes depend on that fluctuation, those peaks and those rhythms. So when you lose your cycle, the tissues throughout the body and those signals are not properly controlled. That's where we're having breakdown happening behind the scenes. So what is happening in perimenopause? The term for it is ovarian senescence. And basically, this is a significant decline and shutting down of our ovarian reserves. Yes, it's associated with reduced fertility, the loss of our period, but man, so much more is at stake. And you start to have the emergence of all of the metabolic disturbances, osteoporosis, neurodegeneration, kind of the onset of a lot of dementia type brain health disorders. And it can be a disaster. So as we get more into this, I want to kind of give you some definitions that are really important, because I've learned, first of all, I did not know until I did my mentorship so much of this. And I often say that situation where I finally found some guidance and I found that intensive mentorship, the more I learned, the more pissed off I got, because I thought, you know what, I should know this. I'm a health coach and I coach women. This is my whole world. But also, this should be common knowledge. This should not be like specialized information. We should all know this information. So that's why I'm so passionate about bringing the information to you. So when we use the term perimenopause, peri just means around the time of the menopausal transition. So you have early stage perimenopause. This is when you have normal cycles. There might be changes in the length of your cycle or the occasional skipped cycle. That's early stage. Late stage perimenopause is when your cycles skip for 60 or more days. And then if we look at the key hormonal changes that are happening during either early stage or late stage perimenopause, you've got dramatic fluctuations in estrogen, like dramatic. It can spike up really high, go down really, really low. You've got persistently declining progesterone. You also have that dysregulated feedback loop between the brain and the ovaries, the HPO axis. So everything is winding down. Even though you've got the fluctuating and temporary spikes of estrogen, everything is on the decline. In menopause, here's something that's going to shock you. Menopause is actually one day. One day. It is that one single day on the calendar when you have been a full year without a cycle. So just that one day. Everything before that would be perimenopause. And it's about that transition time between irregular cycles to periods being non-existent. After you've reached that one day where you have not had a cycle for 12 months, then you're postmenopausal, okay? So there's a lot, can be a very long transition. The average age of menopause is typically 51. The average age range can be anywhere from 45 to 55. We're seeing dramatic ranges right now because of all of our exposures and our health. And so we're seeing a lot more younger women going through menopause a lot earlier, and there's a lot involved here. So that transition into menopause, like perimenopause, it can be anywhere from 2 years to 10 years. That's a long time. And that can be a very long time of suffering because there's a lot of symptoms that go with that. So let me see if I can change my screen. So let's see. So let me point out there are over 100 symptoms of perimenopause. So let me go over some of the funky ones. A lot of these you're familiar with. And a lot of women think, you know what, I'm not having hot flashes, so like I'm good. Well, there's a lot of symptoms when our hormones are declining. It can be changes in skin elasticity, joint pain, muscle aches, headaches, brain fog is at the top of the list. Depression, anxiety, anger surges is another one. Does anybody, we're not going to raise our hand if we relate to that because I'd have to raise my hand on that one. Sleep disturbances, changes in your cholesterol. Your cholesterol levels typically go up because you're having metabolic disturbances behind the scenes, digestive issues, changes in sense of taste, feeling like you smell something, tingling or numbness in the extremities. Some people complain of like little electric shock sensations, and that kind of throws them. Dizziness, vertigo, breast tenderness, dry eyes, changes in menstrual odor, cold intolerance, heat intolerance, restless legs, teeth and gum issues, changes in your sense of smell, ringing in the ears or tinnitus. There's a lot of symptoms that are associated with the decline of hormones that we see in perimenopause. So we know that hormones start declining a lot earlier than certainly what I thought. Progesterone can start decreasing as young as age 35. So progesterone decreases 75% between the ages of 35 and 50. Estrogen decreases 35% between the ages of 35 and 50. But make no mistake, if you have a progesterone problem, you have an estrogen problem. These two work together. So in order to produce progesterone, ovulation must occur. And if you need ovulation, you've got to have optimal estradiol levels. So if you don't have enough estrogen, that equals no or very weak ovulation. That equals no progesterone. So also the way these create receptors for each other. So keep in mind, low progesterone always equals low estrogen. These two are our lifeblood. When you hear of a doctor and they're just leading off with testosterone, they're doing this wrong. Okay, that is like a quick fix. Like, let me see if I can get you feeling better and I'm going to get you walked out the door. So we've got to look at estrogen and progesterone. Also, something else you may have heard of is hormone balance. Like, take this supplement, you'll balance your hormones. First of all, hormone balance is BS. You just heard me talk about it's the peaks and the fluctuations, the peaks and the rhythms of the hormones. That is what is important. That is not hormone balance. There is no such thing as hormone balance, quote unquote. The very essence of perimenopause is hormone imbalance. It's wild fluctuations and they are steadily declining. It's part of that transition. What is devastating and where we get really caught up is we get really caught up in the symptoms. And it's not just the symptoms, it's what is coming next. So yes, the symptoms are miserable. There's no doubt about it. Like you feel trapped in your own body. You can't think straight. You're getting angry. You're irritable real easily. Like you're having bathroom issues. You're gaining weight. Nothing is working that used to work. And you're wondering what the heck is going on. So the symptoms are absolutely miserable. But the scariest part is what the symptoms signify. And those symptoms signify functional decline leading to disease. And yes, that is even in women who are like, no, I'm eating right, I'm exercising. Okay, that can only do so much. Is it part of the puzzle? You better believe it. But we also have to recognize that eating right and exercising is not just going to increase your hormones. So one of the other things that you need to be aware of is when you have low hormones, that equals inflammation. Inflammation is at the root of every single disease state that you and I can name. So low hormones start in perimenopause, and it is a pro-inflammatory state because that estradiol, the loss of that is disrupting this finely controlled homeostasis or balance. And we know that inflammation is going to lead to that dysfunction and disease. So it's one of the reasons we have a hard time with our weight, because inflammation and weight gain are very best friends. They hang out together. So there's a lot going on here behind the scenes. And it's not just the miserable symptoms, it is the functional decline happening behind the scenes, and that will lead to disease. And that is what is so devastating, especially to us women who are being really proactive. We're like, wait a minute, like I've been taking care of myself. What do you mean I have heart disease? Like, where did that come from? What do you mean I broke a leg and now I have osteoporosis? Like, that doesn't make sense. I say break a leg because a lot of women don't find osteoporosis until they like break something, and then they're told they have this silent disease called osteoporosis. So I want us to move into hormone testing. And here's what you need to know. Most of what I'm about to tell you about is not going to be offered by your doctor. I'm in that functional medicine space, and we do things a little bit differently. We're looking for root cause, and there's a lot of testing that is offered that traditional doctors aren't even aware of because they're not taught or trained that way. So we're going to talk about some different tests. Keep in mind when a woman goes to the doctor and she says, well, check my blood work. Like, am I in menopause? Am I in perimenopause? Like what? Like, check my blood work. Remember what I said about the wild fluctuations in estrogen. Depending on when they check the blood work, I mean, it could be like, nope, your estrogen looks fine, like you're okay, or it could look really low. Okay, so it's just wildly inaccurate during perimenopause. That being said, if you are to choose hormone replacement therapy, you're with a really good provider. They will check your levels with blood work to make any dosing adjustments. So let's talk about the Dutch test. This is one of my favorite tests. It is a dried urine test. So it shows your total hormones, very important. Most importantly, it shows how your body is metabolizing those hormones. And this is very crucial for assessing your risk of developing breast cancer or other hormone-related conditions. And so it's looking at the metabolism. So specifically, it's looking at the metabolites of estrogen. How you metabolize estrone and estradiol is a really big deal. There's 3 types of estrogen, estriol, estradiol, and estrone. And how you metabolize is whether you're metabolizing safely or dangerously. So this one test gives you a very, very full picture. Another favorite thing about this test is that it's looking at adrenal function. I cannot begin to explain how important it is that we look at a woman's adrenal function. This is often overlooked. So this is giving us a breakdown of how our adrenals are functioning, what our cortisol looks like, what that little, there's like a little peak of cortisol in the morning, and it's supposed to gradually slope off, be the lowest at night. And so this sets into motion all sorts of physiologic processes, and our adrenal glands are very important. A lot of us, because of stress and our lifestyle, can get into that adrenal dysfunction. If you've heard it called adrenal fatigue, we look at that. So the Dutch test gives us a lot of good, valuable information. And the reality is that if your adrenals are not supported, you're not going to have energy. You're not going to be able to manage your stress. You're going to really struggle with your weight. You're going to really struggle with your blood sugar. So I love looking at adrenal function in women because it helps us connect the dots. Another favorite test that I run for my clients inside the Hormone Huddle is called the GI Map stool test. This is a poop test. I'm going to quote my client, Lisa. She said, Jennifer, you were right. it is the grossest test. And then she said this, it's the grossest test with the greatest information. So I was like, that's good, Lisa. I'm going to use that. So it's what we're looking at is everything that's happening in your gut. Gut health is very complicated. It is very, very complex. Every single woman should be getting this test. It's showing us digestion. It's showing us stomach acidity. It's showing us the beneficial bacteria, what I call the keystone or the leader bacteria. It's showing us pathogens. It's showing us opportunistic bacteria. It can show us yeast, parasites. It shows us the lining of the gut wall, and if that is healthy and robust, or if you're really struggling with the lining and leaky gut. It shows us how your immune system is working. If you have dysbiosis, H. pylori, if you have an inflamed gut. If you have an inflamed gut, you have an inflamed body. So anytime we're talking inflammation, we've got to go back to gut health. Most importantly, this shows us beta-glucuronidase, which is an enzyme that helps your body break down, metabolize, and eliminate estrogen. This is very important because if you don't have enough of that enzyme, that means you're going to reabsorb junky estrogen that your body should have eliminated. Estrogen is a use it, lose it hormone. And it's just how God created it. So it's important that we look at that marker. But again, this GI map is a wealth of information. And then the last thing that we like to look at is blood work to look at your overall metabolism, to look at your blood sugar numbers. I love to pull a fasting insulin to get that really good deep view of what's happening. We look at inflammation in the body, a complete thyroid panel, an iron panel, several inflammatory markers. So this is just more personalized data on you that helps provide that really good, complete overall picture. When I do blood work, I am using that functional medicine approach of viewing the body as a system. So I'm looking at blood work, the GI map, the Dutch. I'm connecting all the dots along with everything that client has told me, and we're connecting the dots. Here's why it's so important that you use the functional medicine approach, that complete like root cause approach. Number one, we use a different set of ranges. In traditional medicine, they use a very wide range, and they're looking for what is normal. Well, it's a really wide range. So think of a football field, and you can be all the way at this end zone, and the high end of normal is all the way in the other end zone. And they're like, well, you're normal. That's a really wide range. Functional medicine says, what's optimal? Not what is normal. What is optimal? By the way, just so you know, normal, quote unquote, that's compared to the rest of the population. You and I both know the rest of the population is not very healthy. So we don't want to be compared to the rest of the population. We also don't want to look at what's normal. I don't want to be normal. There can be so many things happening literally for 10 to 15 years that they could have caught if they had looked at this differently the way functional medicine does. So can you tell I'm really passionate about that? So I want to get into, I kind of gave you a snapshot of what are some things you need to know? What are some decline happening, behind the scenes? And I know you're wondering, okay, well, like, oh goodness, okay, what do I do? What do I do with this? Before I tell you about some options that you have, I need to teach you about a very pivotal study. And it was a largely flawed study. I'm telling you about this study, not because I think you're interested in scientific studies and research studies, but because there is a chance that you might talk to a doctor and say, you know what, I think I need to consider hormone replacement therapy. And that doctor might, if they're not informed, might come along and say, oh, well, there is a big study that said it's very dangerous and it can lead to disease. It can lead to cancer. And so I want you to be prepared. So let me give you a little bit of background on this study. huge, massive study, started in 1998, $725 million, the largest randomized study to date. And they aimed to evaluate the effect of hormone replacement therapy, HRT, on the most common cause of death and disability in postmenopausal women. So we're looking primarily at cancer, osteoporosis, and CVD or cardiovascular disease. And it was they botched it. They absolutely botched this study. I'm going to tell you how they botched it. Okay. Number one, the wrong subjects. This was a huge flawed study. The subjects were way too old. They said, we're going to study women going through the menopausal transition, but the average age was 63. And so that for a lot of those study participants, they were a decade, 10 years past their last menstrual cycle. What does that mean? That means that they already had a tremendous amount of dysfunction and disease in their body. Also, these subjects were not metabolically healthy. They were obese, they were pre-diabetic. A lot of them were smokers. They had poor diet, poor lifestyle. They were not pre-screened for disease. That's a red flag. Interestingly enough, they also excluded women with hot flashes, which I'm not sure why you would do, because that's one of the things you want to study. And the goal was simply to evaluate the role of hormone therapy in menopause as a preventive therapy to protect against cardiovascular and disease, bone health. Yet they studied sick older women, and then they extrapolated those results to women of all ages everywhere. And they also used the wrong hormones. So they used synthetic hormones. One of those was Premarin. It is derived from horse urine. So these women took hormones that included waste products, were alien to the human body, would never exist in a female at any stage. They were endocrine disruptors, and they were given to women in an oral form, and that has some risk associated with it. And it was dosed in a way that ignored a woman's critical, rhythmic, natural physiology. And it doesn't end there. The flaws don't end there. They also jumped to the wrong conclusions. They literally misportrayed statistical risk in order to claim clinical risk. And so now the good news is that this hugely flawed study has been debunked. A lot of this has been brought to light, but it has dramatically, and I mean dramatically, affected our healthcare for the past 20 years, because basically they ran to press with this study. They stopped it early because everybody got scared, and all with all of these flaws, and no one said, wait a minute, like, let's look into this further. Something's not right here. And everybody stopped giving women hormone replacement therapy. It just absolutely ridiculous. So when we talk about hormone replacement therapy, I tell you all of this because there's still a lot of controversy. And that's where there's just a lot of emotion and anger involved, because we deserve better care. We deserve more studies. By the way, another little fun fact for you. Did you know that it was not required for women to be included in research studies until 1993? 1993. That's when it was a law that women had to be included in research studies. Prior to that, they did not. So that is very, very sad. So I will tell you, I have spent years, like I said, in healthcare. I remember being at a conference when they released the results of that WHI study, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's significant, especially the way they presented it. And so I've always kind of thought, okay, holistic approach, like just, like a hormone replacement therapy is bad, or, I just didn't know. And so at the beginning of 2023, I interviewed a guest for my podcast. And when I asked her about hormone replacement therapy, I was just shocked by her answer. I realized how very little I knew. And I realized that I had some pretty significant preconceived notions based on what I had heard a long, long time ago. And I didn't know how deeply flawed that study was. I also didn't know how many options there were for hormone replacement and what the considerations were. So that interviewing her and me realizing, man, I don't know enough, led me on a very frustrating research journey. Me following, experts and doing my own research and searching and searching and searching for valid information. And I finally came across two incredible experts, and they were offering for the first time a mentorship. And it was going to be a 6-month mentorship. And the more I researched that, the more I thought, okay, this is exactly what I need. That was a game changer for not just my health, but for all the women that I serve, because all of a sudden I had the answers. I had the clear-cut science of what happens in a woman's body, what we need to do about it. So that was such a good mentorship. So when we talk about hormone replacement therapy, I want you to realize it's not like a one size fits all, but we have to have the discussion. You deserve to be informed. So I want you to become a researcher. I want you to dig in and learn. Like, I love how proactive you are that you showed up here tonight. It's a pretty spring day. I'm not sure where you're located, but over here in North Texas, it's a pretty spring evening and there's a lot of things you can be doing. But you showed up here. That shows me like, hey, I want to learn. I want to know what's going on. I don't want to be caught by surprise as an older woman with all these diseases thinking I thought I knew that. I thought I was doing okay. So you want to be informed about hormone replacement therapy, and it can do a lot. So let me go over some of those benefits really quick. It can reduce the symptoms of menopause. It can definitely protect your bones, protect your brain. It's also very, very heart protective, can help prevent heart disease. It improves your lipid status. It can improve your skin, your hair, your nails. It can definitely help address your vaginal health. Women, as those hormones are declining, there's a lot happening with those genitourinary symptoms and a lot of dryness, but also like tearing of the tissues. Sex can become very painful and difficult, and it's very frustrating for a woman. And so, addressing hormones with hormone replacement therapy can make a big difference with vaginal health, also with libido. And it can improve sleep, your mood, energy. So there is a lot that hormone replacement therapy can do. Where the confusion, there's a lot of confusion though. Hormone replacement therapy, what does that mean when someone says, well, I'm on hormone replacement therapy? Your question should be, okay, well, what does that mean to you? Because there's a lot of different types, a lot of different types. So there are some doctors out there who will call birth control and IUDs hormone replacement therapy or hormone therapy. There are synthetic hormones. There's bioidentical hormones. You've got pellets, pills, troches, creams. How are you to know what's what and what's going to be good for you? What are your goals? So just so you know, there's so much nuance to hormone replacement therapy. It is not a yes or no answer. Okay. So you've got to learn, you've got to dig in here because I want you to be able to make an educated decision, not a decision out of desperation. I want you to learn before all of this stuff starts happening. So just know when we talk about hormone replacement therapy, it is like the wild, wild west out there. There's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of arguments. The form of the hormones, the dose of the hormones, the schedule really does matter. And I will tell you, no matter who you are, healthy, for you to have a really good response, hormone replacement therapy needs a healthy host, bottom line. And you deserve a trained provider. You deserve a doctor who has been trained, who has some experience, who understands and is going to work closely with you. Hormone replacement therapy is not a set it and forget about it proposition here. Okay. You can find plenty of doctors who are, heck, you can get it mail order and, slap a patch on and call it a day. That is not the best idea. Do not DIY your hormones. Don't stick with that doctor who's like, Sure, I'll give it to you. And they don't even know what they're doing, okay? Because there's a lot more to it than that, a lot of nuance there. So if you want me to just give you some direct talk and kind of summarize all of this up, y'all, earlier when I was putting these slides together, I mean, this could have gone on for, I don't know how many days. Um, uh, so I'm trying to condense down a lot of key information. But if you want me to just give you some like key points, just direct talk without the BS. When it comes to hormones, bioidentical is best. Bioidentical is not a marketing term. I don't recommend you use synthetic hormones. Use something that your body recognizes. I would not use oral estrogen. There's can be some blood clotting risk with that. That includes birth control pills. Birth control pills are awful. That's another subject. If you have questions about that, you can always reach out to me and I can give you some great resources to look into too. Because there's plenty of doctors who are like, oh, okay, like you're in perimenopause, like here, we'll just stay on the birth control and you'll be fine. The priority is always estrogen and progesterone first. So the best hormone providers, they're getting estrogen and progesterone dialed in first. Okay, they might address testosterone down the road, but they're focusing on estrogen and progesterone first. It's important to know your options. And yes, you can start before menopause. You don't have to wait until menopause, until you've been a full year without a cycle. When it comes to bioidentical hormones, there are better options besides pellets. And I know that's a controversial subject and I could get some hate for that, but that may not be the best option, but you need to be fully informed about that. Nutrition and exercise are always going to be foundational and really help support the body. So we're not saying, hey, just use HRT and forget about what you're eating and how you're moving. And I will tell you, HRT always needs a healthy host. So when your gut health is dialed in, when your detox pathways are optimal, when you're metabolically healthy, then we're looking at that really good, complete picture so that you can live a very full, optimal, vital life. So you have to ask yourself this as we start to wrap up. What are my goals with hormone replacement therapy? Like, what are my goals? What do I need to know? And what are my goals? What am I going for here? What's important to me? For me personally, I want all the benefits, all of them. I want the symptom management. I don't want to struggle with brain fog and losing words. I want to age well. I want the anti-aging benefits. I want the prevention of functional decline happening behind the scenes. I want the disease prevention for sure. I mean, this has been my whole world. I'm a very proactive woman. So definitely interested in the disease prevention aspect. I want to enjoy life. I don't want to be dealing with all the diseases and the dysfunction that keeps me from enjoying life, from doing what I love to do. So to do this, I will tell you, you have to be a very proactive participant in your health, especially now. Okay, you don't have a choice. Like you cannot just sit on the sidelines. I wish it were different. I wish this was just as easy as, hey girl, I'm going to send you to the right doctor and you'll be fine. It doesn't work that way. You need to be fully informed on the options and consider what you're willing to do because it's going to take compliance. And you need to be a proactive participant in your wellness plan. And you can do that. But here's the reality. You need guidance and you need a plan. And that's where I can help you. So when it comes to testing and answers, personalized protocols, when I get to run tests on a woman and we get to connect the dots, it is so validating for her because what we're doing is we're like, okay, you said you couldn't lose weight. Here's why. These top 3 reasons right here. So when we look at blood work, the hormones, and we look at the gut health, it's a lot of validations. When we look at all of that and piece it together with the symptoms that she's having, it's validating because as women, we're made to feel like it's all in our head. It's just all in your head. Here, take a prescription, get out of here. You know, it's all in your head. Girl, it's not all in your head. you've got some things happening that need to be addressed. We can do that with testing. You're going to love having answers. So very validating. Based on the testing and the answers, I'm going to give you a personalized protocol so you know exactly what to do. Extensive education about gut health, detoxification, adrenal function, thyroid, metabolism. Remember, none of these things operate in a bubble. It is part of a beautiful system that God created. Everything works together. Again, it's that functional medicine approach of everything works together in the body. And then most importantly, guidance and extensive education on hormone replacement therapy and finding a doctor, whether that's, hey, here's the questions you need to ask, or actually giving you a referral to a highly trained hormone provider. So what if I told you you could finally get specific answers through comprehensive testing, getting to the root cause of your symptoms? What if you could actually have relief from those frustrating symptoms, the bloating, the fatigue, the weight gain? What if your body composition could finally shift and you start to feel stronger and leaner and a little bit more confident? What if you could get some more energy so you could actually feel like exercising and moving and finally enjoy life instead of feeling like you're stuck? What if I told you that you could have a very personalized strategy so you don't have to guess anymore and you have the clarity and the confidence and knowing exactly what to do? Can you imagine like what that would feel like? It would bring you hope, right? You would just feel lighter, like, okay, I'm not on my own. I don't have to figure this out all by myself. I don't have to DIY my hormones. So that is why I created the hormone huddle. I don't want you to be frustrated. I don't want you to try to figure this out on your own. I don't want you to be like, well, I think hormone replacement therapy is bad, or maybe I'm not a candidate, or I think I'm replacing my hormones correctly. Like, I'm not sure, but I guess I'm good. And then you get a diagnosis in 5, 10 years, and you're like, shoot, I didn't know. So I want you to be empowered. I want you to make decisions not out of desperation, but out of confidence. Um, and I will tell you that because this is a really busy season of life, I told you about Maddie and JD. I think my daughter is going to be getting married next year. She'll be getting engaged soon. JD is about to graduate from high school. So I'm really limited on how many clients I can take at one time because of the extensive work I do with my clients and the extensive testing and all of the support they get. It's not unusual for my clients to come to me and be like, Jennifer, listen to this email that I got from XYZ influencer or whatever doctor. Like, what do you think about this? What does this mean? Or Jennifer, hey, here's an article I found. Like, what does this mean? So I'm a resource, okay, to my clients. And that way they're not having to figure all of this out. So if you are tired of feeling like your hormones are running the show, I'm looking for 3 midlife women who are done guessing. You're absolutely done. You're struggling with symptoms. You want some testing and you're wondering if HRT is right, or you might be already on HRT and you're like, is this working? Is this the best thing for me? If you're ready for real answers, no more confusion, no more DIY, no more dead ends, and you want to start feeling better in the next 3 weeks, then this is a good program for you. What I want you to do is your next step. I just want you to schedule a call. Let me look at what's going on with you. Let's see if you're a good fit and if this is a good time for you to do this. So you're just going to go to bit.ly/hormone hotline to schedule your call. You've been getting the emails that contain the Zoom link for this meeting tonight. You will get a link to schedule a call in those upcoming emails as well. And I would love to speak with you. I want to hear what's going on with you. And what you're struggling with. Okay. So did I stop sharing, Barb? Okay, good. So that's the end of the menopause myths and misinformation, the lies you've been told. I tried to shove as much information as possible in there. To give you an example, the hormone education module in the hormone huddle, that has 8 different lessons. So I tried to shove a lot in this one little short lesson and it not go on for hours on end. So I'm going to open it up and I would love to answer like any questions that you have. And of course, if you have some questions you don't want to ask in front of the group, you can always ask those when we schedule a call. But I want you to have that freedom to ask questions. Can anybody think of anything offhand? You can tell this is a really big subject. So it's kind of, it's a tough one to tackle. Hormone replacement therapy could be one all by, could be a master class all by itself, but you needed some good background of what the heck is menopause? What's going on? Like we have to have these conversations all together.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Do you have to know your cycle? Because I had to have ablation really early after my kids, so I have symptoms, but I still don't have a cycle.
Yeah, you
Do we
don't.
need to know
And
that?
you are exactly in the same boat that I was. So as I was learning about this and they're like, well, your cycles get more erratic. I'm like, well, I don't have a cycle because I had a uterine ablation done. So what does that mean? Does it change anything? And I'm literally like Googling, also randomly searching for podcasts on the subject. And it was just very frustrating. So the main thing is that you don't have that indicator of, oh, okay, I'm menopausal. Um, that being said, the way my mentors approach this, sometimes we want the label of I'm late stage perimenopause or I'm postmenopausal. Sometimes
Mhm.
we want the label. The label doesn't matter. What matters the
Okay.
most is what you're doing about it. So we don't have the cycle as an indication. What we know though is based on your age, and I'm assuming you're around my age, that hormonal decline has been happening for some time. So there's some breakdown happening behind the scenes. When I first got my testing done with my mentors, it was just so frustrating to me because I've always been so proactive. And I was like, if I had known, I would have done this a long time ago.
Okay.
I just wish I'd known before. But unfortunately, we're not offered this.
Okay. Thank
Yep.
you.
You're welcome. Any other
So,
questions?
yeah, I'll ask a question. So, you know, 53, still having a very consistent cycle, like very consistent. At this point, other than like normal aging stuff, with metabolism lowering, then
Mhm.
for me, and I've never done the Dutch test or the GI map one, but I know I've had the thyroid, the iron, the blood work.
Good.
And so if I'm not showing like not many of those symptoms yet, is
That's really good.
HRT something people do when when your hormones are still pretty, yeah, I mean, it's just wild. I'm kind of on the above average
Mhm.
age to just every month, same day, runs 5 to 6
I love
days,
that.
done.
Well, it speaks to your health. And Barbara and I go to church together. So she mentioned this one day and I was like, oh my word. And I got excited for her because I was like, cycle as long as you can. We want
I don't have
women
control of that, but
yeah, like we want women to cycle as long as they can. It's devastating, by the way, going back to birth control pills, when we stop a woman's cycle. It's horrific. So if you
and
have
I never did. I never took any of like
so good, so
I
good.
had a poor reaction right before like we were engaged, gonna get married, got on them thinking, oh, I'll do this before the wedding so we don't have a honeymoon baby. Had a horrible reaction, got off after like 2 months and then never returned. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a really good, healthy cycle, but based on what we understand with the science, you still have everything is still winding down. maybe not as quickly for you as some at your age, but everything is still winding down. So you're still having hormonal decline, and you're there, and the body is starting to it's gonna start having some dysfunction. You might be one of these that has symptoms. You may not. I
Right.
have seen women who are like, I think I'm good. Like, I don't have any symptoms. And then kind of everything hits at one time. So we don't want to just go off of symptoms. So it's just
Right.
really good to be proactive, to be like taking very good care of ourselves, getting the testing, getting the blood work. I'm glad to hear you've had like the full thyroid panel and the iron panel. I also really like to do like a CRP, homocysteine, a ferritin. Ferritin in the iron panel is a better indicator. Yes, it tells us iron status. Most importantly, it tells us inflammation.
Okay.
And then a fasting insulin is going to give us a really good indicator of how metabolically healthy or how metabolically unhealthy we are, and if we're insulin resistant. And so those are some of the labs that I like to run to really get a good indication of, hey, what's going on, but also what's our action plan. But there's plenty of women who will start hormone replacement therapy earlier, even at a younger age. You know, I've got colleagues in their young 40s who started it because based on their testing and their body, they needed to go ahead and start it. But it's a larger decision, so it needs to be a fully informed, educated decision. There's a lot that goes into it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
So I've been in forced menopause since the age of 28. So I was on synthetic hormone replacement for many years, estradiol.
Uh-huh.
Now it's been probably 10 years that I'm not on taking that. I was taking bioidentical, like a cream base on my arm. I would put that on there. Um, my biggest struggle is I I do everything to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So my blood work is usually healthy and everything, but weight wise, uh, I don't know. I'm eating like a vegan with no oils, no um everything, like, my cooking is clean and I
Yeah.
still can't lose weight. And while I've gained weight in the past 10 years, I was able to keep it before with watching how I eat and exercise. And now it's just seems anything I do is not helping.
It's so frustrating. And I hear the same thing from so many clients. And what we know is that when those hormones are gone, and it dramatically affects every aspect of our metabolism. So, number one, like it drives inflammation in the body. So, anytime we have rising levels of inflammation, we will gain weight. And then as we gain weight, it pushes the levels of inflammation even higher. So that is one aspect. The loss of estradiol is a very pro-inflammatory state. Also, like our sleep is affected. So anytime our sleep is disrupted, blood sugar is going to be disruptive. We don't tolerate carbohydrates as well,
No.
and we become very insulin resistant. So we do want to use very, very specific nutrition strategies. I'm a very big fan of eating meat. We need that protein. A lot of times in a vegan or a vegetarian diet, we're getting way too many carbohydrates and we're just not getting the protein that we desperately need. That's just my opinion based on my training, my experience with a lot of women. I know there's a lot of arguments out there, but I want to make sure that my clients are getting the protein that they desperately need. But there's always a lot of factors that go into it. When I'm working with a woman, I never assume, well, she just doesn't have enough motivation. She just needs to work out more and eat less. It's just a bunch of bull, but we're being made to feel like it's just us, that we don't have enough self-control. We don't have enough willpower. But there's definitely things happening behind the scenes that are making it close to impossible to lose weight. There are things on that GI map earlier this week with a client of mine, and we're looking at her GI map, and there's a couple of key bacteria, and I'm like, you have none. Based on this, like, there's no way your weight's gonna come down. Like, we've got to do something. We have to address this. One of those was responsible for carbohydrate metabolism. It's in the gut, a specific bacteria in the gut. And so, like, that's why we want very specific testing to give us some really specific answers and then have that personalized protocol.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, thanks.
Any other questions? This has been great. I think we're right at an hour. So I appreciate you guys showing up. It shows me how proactive you are. You want to learn. I hope that this has been a really good resource for you. Like I said, I try to put in as much as possible. There's so much here. And like I said, it's very controversial. It's like the wild, wild west out there. So I just want to be a good resource for you. I want to be an encouragement for you. I do not want you to feel alone. If you would like to take that next step, then you can set up a phone call and we can discuss your specific case. So to do that, you would go to bit.ly/hormone hotline, and that's how you schedule that. And you'll be getting that in your email too. So I appreciate you guys showing up, and I know we'll have plenty watching it tomorrow morning when this is released after they've gotten back from all of their springtime activities with their families. But guys, thank you for showing up. I'll see you soon, okay?
Thanks, Pickett.
Bye-bye.